to Causing the Effect, a podcast focused on the exploration of your mind, body, and spirit.
Yo, what is going on, Causing the Effect community? Welcome to the new high-quality channel. I got everything running here, and I'm here with my good friend Dierdre Ray. Dierdre, what's going on? Happy Easter, all that good stuff.
Happy Easter. Everything's going good. Had a great Easter. Played some bingo. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was going to save this for the pre-talk, but whatever. We'll get to it. Bingo on a Sunday night. That sounds so, I don't know, just wholesome.
It's awesome. Yeah, because my boyfriend's mom is super into bingo, and I had never really played Irish bingo is actually different than US bingo, and I'm hooked. Every Sunday, I'm ready to go. I freaking love it. And we just got to go into the hall since COVID's over, so it's a totally different experience. It's amazing.
Okay, so what is the difference?
Okay, so in the US bingo, it's kind of for lack of a better term, like tic-tac-toe, where, it's you try to get a line where, it's so hard to explain. And then Irish bingo, you still try to get a line, but it's you get one line, two lines, or a full house. So it's where you get all of the stuff in one, and you can do 3 books. It's intense. You have to look up the different cards.
It's another dimension. It sounds like another dimension. It's going from checkers to chess. Awesome. Exactly. Very cool. Exactly. Very cool. So now Dierdre's teaching me. So you're Canadian and Irish, but Canadian born, or were you just born in Canada?
So I was born in Toronto, Canada. And then I lived there until I was 2. And then I moved to I've lived in Missouri, Florida, Massachusetts, all of that good stuff.
So how did you end up in Ireland?
So I'm actually a citizen. So I got it through my grandparents. My Roscommon, kind of like Balladrine. And then my grandma was from County Clare. So I was able to claim citizenship through them. And then I got to live here without a visa.
Nice. Now it seems like you've been to a couple places. Where has been your favorite, and what is it about Ireland that has made you stay so long?
What has been my favorite? I love Scotland. I actually almost moved to Scotland before, instead of Ireland when I was there for a summer. I was kind of right outside of Edinburgh, and I love Prague. Prague was really cool too. Have you been?
My cousins went. I missed that trip, but me and the family do one long trip every year. This year Switzerland, last year was Hawaii, so it's on the list. I missed the Prague trip though. I've heard it was spectacular.
It's amazing. Yeah, I would say there's just so many. I just went to Greece, and Greece is I think that's just it was. I
saw, and that was recent.
That was recent. It was last week.
So where did you go in Greece?
We went to Santorini.
That is my favorite. That's where I've been. That is my favorite. Yeah, love. There's something I did Santorini to Mykonos. Now I'm from Brooklyn. It sounded good on paper, Mykonos, but not for me. It was too fast paced. Everybody was trying to show off the yacht. Santorini though, still my favorite place in the world. Just something about it. And then you have that the mountains cascading on top, and then everything kind of looking over the ocean. Man,
the views are what you've never seen before. It's just insane. Apparently the lost city of Atlantis, that whole Plato city it was based on Santorini. I learned that when I was there.
See?
I love history, so I'm oh my God, this is so cool.
No, it's okay. So are you comfortable with just going? How long were you there for? How do you manage to keep the balance? I'm wrapping my head around this because I'm from Brooklyn. If you told me I'm going to a couple different places, I haven't left yet. I haven't left permanently yet, but it's something that I've been thinking about just because New York's been a little sketch, let's say.
Oh, sorry. Wait, what do you mean? How do I prepare?
Yeah, how have you growing up? Were your parents movers too? Did your parents do something that kind of made them move for work or something?
Yeah. So I moved a couple times, different schools and houses and states and countries, all that stuff. So I've always been somebody who just didn't mind just kind of going wherever. And I always any school that I went to, any sort of anything that I ever joined in, I was always either like a few days late or like a year late. So any like high school, I like started sophomore year, or like, you know, the school, like middle school, I started like 2 years from like the middle school. So like nobody, so everybody had their friends and everything like that. So I was always been good at like just kind of
And what
doing
do
my
your
own
parents
thing.
do? Were your parents movers and shakers growing up as well?
No, so they actually stayed put all growing up. But we moved because of my dad's job. He worked for Enterprise Rent a Car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then my mom's an Irish dance teacher.
Very cool. So
So
now they're both with you
yeah.
in Ireland.
No. So they live in Florida.
See, that's the right spot. I'm looking at
Yeah.
places in Florida now, right now, to be honest with you.
No way.
Yeah, have you been to New York recently? Have you seen the city and what's going on? It is a
No.
little it's just not what it used to be. And like last week there was a shooting on the train. There was this guy who shot up a bunch of different things. I was the train behind it. So it puts you like in a different, like, not that I was scared. It's like it's the other train, but like just like why are you putting yourself in this potential situation to like get in trouble? And it's just a different time because people think New York used to be, used to be the best spot to go to. And now
Yeah.
it's,
It used to be like the hub.
have you been?
I've been once, and no offense, I actually personally didn't like New York City. I'm more of like a Boston city gal. Like I think it's more like family friendly. Like no,
I'm
people are
with you.
just nicer.
When did you go to New York?
Oh, it was like, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago. It was really cool though. I went to a Broadway show. That was my favorite thing. I love the Broadway. I'm very down nature though, and like
You're not getting any.
Central Park was it was a concrete jungle. Like that was real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Which Broadway show did you see?
Mamma Mia and Jersey Boys.
I've seen Jersey Boys. Mamma Mia I haven't seen, but I'm a big play guy too. I would say top three: Wicked, Les Mis,
Ooh.
Phantom of the Opera. I go old school. I celebrate the Les Mis. Me and my friends, we watch Les Mis once a year in July. It's called Les Mis month. It's amazing. Just
Oh my God.
it's fantastic.
That's awesome. The
Yeah.
Wicked. I know like all of the Wicked album.
It's
Like
great
I was super into that when I was younger.
Now let's get into the fitness side of this. I tell people a little bit about your journey. You can start from wherever you want. And what started, me and Dierdre connected through Instagram. And I see connected with it looks like a lot of your audience, a lot of young people, and kind of changing the mindset on Instagram of being this kind of fake world and all that stuff. Just talk a little bit about your journey and what that looked like.
Yeah, sure. So I always had like a really weird like relationship with food, I guess. My parents had always grown up like super into fitness and like super balanced, like healthy living and all of that stuff. So like none of my issues stemmed from them in any way, shape, or form. It was like just strictly because I actually think it was all because of my OCD, because I was diagnosed with OCD at 19, but we realized that I had it since I was like 4. So we're like, oh, that's what it was. That's why you were so weird. But so I started dieting, I want to say at like 11 or 12. Like I would try different, I went all into like the fitness, quote unquote, fitness diet culture kind of stuff, like the all liquid diets, like the skinny teas, like the laxatives, like everything. And, or the keto. I was vegan for a year, which like vegan, I actually think would be like the best one to go to. Cause sometimes it's not a diet, it's just a lifestyle. So vegan, it depends on how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not hating on vegans. love the vegans, but, yeah, it wasn't, yeah, none of it was really like in a healthy mindset for me. So when I got to college, that's when I kind of started like just starving myself, because I had always had like a binge eating disorder. I had started like hiding my food or like what I was eating and all of that stuff, because I was kind of getting bullied and like I was really struggling with my mental health and everything. So that was kind of just my way of coping, was just like I was really looking forward to food at the end of the night and like watching a show. And because like people would be out of the house and I was like not really able to do things because I was pretty mentally ill. So I was just home alone and I would just eat like the whole time. And then so I went to college and I started having like a weight issue. So I just like starved myself as much as possible, like would eat 800 to 1200 calories a day. Like if I went over, I panicked. I had like an exercise addiction, like would really overwork out and everything like that. And then sophomore year of college, I dropped out of college because it was because of my OCD. Like I just kind of snapped for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
And I just physically wasn't able to like function anymore. And I like had to go to the hospital and everything like that. But then my mom actually found a treatment center for OCD, which I didn't know existed because I didn't think that OCD was like a big deal. But turns out it's actually one of the worst disorders that you can have. Didn't know that.
Sure.
Like if you're actually diagnosed with it. Obviously there's like different severities and everything. But when I went there after I got treatment, then I started like throwing up because I was like, I had gained so much weight from the medicine that I was on. Like I was on like a few different types of medication that they put me on. And one of the side effects was binge eating. And I already had that side effect. So I gained like 30 pounds in like the span of like a month and a half, 2 months. Like it was something crazy. And so after that, and I didn't even notice, like it was one day when I woke up and I was like, oh my God. And I just started like panicking. So then I started doing like the yo-yo dieting again, and then went through like all that stuff. And it went up until my senior year of college, like or the summer before my senior year of college. And I read the book Brain Over Binge, and like it just kind of clicked, like some of the stuff that she was saying. And she was talking about it was like the animal brain versus like your brain, and how it's a very, I don't want to like explain it wrong, but it just went into all of these things of that your brain is actually not, it's just basically telling you like just complete lies. And it's like these urges from like way back in the day that are now habits, and it's actually has nothing to do with like past trauma or anything like that. And that's why so many people hold on to the disorder, because they're like, oh, well, because this happened to me, this is how I cope. And that's actually not necessarily, like that might be how it started, but that's not why you're continuing it. So it just made a lot of sense to me. And from that point on, I just like started having like that's actually right out a few months after that, I started my fitness account that I have now, because I felt like I'm like, okay, I can do this without feeling like I'm lying, and kind of share the tips on how I'm going to go from this point and like live without binge eating, which I still, obviously it was like back and forth, and I figured it out. And finally I was like to this day, I have absolutely no eating disorder whatsoever. I can like, or no body image, like nothing. And that was like 3 years ago, wouldn't even think that was going to even be a possibility. So yeah. Sorry, that was a lot.
Jeez, you went through a lot of shit, and you're relatively young, because I'm dealing with a little bit of binge eating. Now, the OCD, how bad is like, because I hear everybody like who has like some issue just chalks it up to OCD, and it's like you actually are the real one who has it. How difficult is that to deal with, mixing in with this body image issue and all that? Like how much of a handicap is that? And like what are some of the difficulties that you would kind of have to go through on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I would say OCD is probably the most misunderstood disorder like ever, because I personally, when they told me I had OCD, I was like, you're absolutely incorrect. Like, because I had been told by a previous therapist that she thought I had bipolar, which I don't think that therapists should say that. Also, by the way, just like, you know what I think you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Like now I'm going to obsess over that and think that I have that. But yeah, I've been told like everything. They thought I had psychosis for a little bit. Like it is horrible. So the thing with OCD is it's an anxiety disorder, but it is a root cause for a lot of other disorders. So I had depression, I had like all types of anxiety, like sleep anxiety, social anxiety, like just general anxiety, severe panic attacks. I would have panic. I actually didn't know I was having panic attacks because that was how like regular they were for me. I just thought that I was upset. And then I had a panic attack in front of I think it was my dad, and my dad was just like, "You're like, oh my god!" Like after the fact, he was like, "You were having a panic attack." I'm like, "That wasn't a panic attack. Like that. Like I don't have those." He was like, are you for real?" And I was like, "That's just a Tuesday." Like, what do you mean? But yeah, so that's fun. But then and then all of my eating disorder and disordered eating patterns all stemmed because I was like calculating the calories and like obsessed with what kind of food, what type of food, what exactly was going in my body, like all of that stuff. But the main thing that OCD did for me was all growing up, I had like from 14 to I want to say like till 18, like I didn't make a friend like at all because I had like two acquaintances that I would talk to sometimes, and I would sometimes pity invite me to things, and they were very, very nice. But like I didn't have a genuine connection or like a genuine friend for those 4 years. Like that, my brain physically would not let me connect with anybody. And I would just and I was like very weird in high school because my disorders, like I would like talk to myself, or like I would like refuse to go in a certain hall, or like I wouldn't be allowed to speak in class. So if somebody talked to me, I would just like nod and not speak. And they were like, "What?" Like what? And but it was so took over my entire life that I was like, I was not able, like I would not let myself speak to them because my brain said I couldn't, so I literally wasn't allowed to, and I didn't care if I looked how I looked or like what happened, as long as like I felt safe in my compulsion or with whatever compulsion I was doing or whatever my brain was telling me to do. But I had like rituals like constantly, like I couldn't breathe without like counting. I couldn't like walk without in an exact pattern that I knew where I was going and where I was stepping beforehand. I couldn't walk through doors without like clearing my mind, and if it wasn't clear, I'd have to go back out. And like sometimes there was one time I remember when I was in high school, it was like nighttime, it was like 11 o'clock or something, and I just had been going back and forth through my door, and like to the point where I didn't stop until I physically wasn't able to go in anymore because I was crying so hard. Like I wouldn't feel safe. And yeah, it was a lot. But then so that happened like all throughout high school, but nobody knew about it because it was just all in my head. And when I was home, that was like my safe space, so I felt like I could be more of like myself there. And I didn't have like the weird like I had bad tics, which was also fun. Like I would have breathing tics, or like I would click and stuff like that. So people would just be like, "What are you doing?" And then my parents saw none of it because they weren't at school with me, because school was considered a contaminated spot for me. And that's where most of my stuff would happen. So when I was home, as long as I showered and got everything off, like I was good, then I was a little more relaxed and I could like be in my safe spot. But yeah, when I was out, like I would have panic attacks in the car because I couldn't flip a coin over because I was trying to not flip the coin over. And then I got in the car and we were driving, and I just had like a full on like meltdown. And my mom was like, "What is wrong?" I'm like, "I have to go back. Like I have to go back and flip the coin." And she's like, "No." Like, what are you talking about? So that led up to high school to college until, yeah, I like had a meltdown in college, and it was like the third day, and I had to pack up all my stuff and go. And I popped a tire on the way out because I was doing driving compulsions where I was like rearing certain ways, and it was very dangerous. Like, but yeah.
Shit. And now it's like, now I'm 18, and that's been your life in your childhood. Now, I think, most of us, at least me, being ignorant with this, is like, oh, you touch a doorknob 5 times or 6 times, you have to brush your teeth more. Would you say that what we think of OCD is like a more of a lower level, and what you were dealing with was more of just like the actual higher or the worst kind of side of it?
Yes and no, because I like that's what people would see that I would do, was just the tapping of the doorknobs, and like all that. They had no idea what was like going on underneath the surface. So like my parents, they were like, "How did we not know?" I was like, "Because like I didn't, like you only saw the very, very, very surface of everything that was happening like below." So when somebody is like tapping the doorknobs, like yes, they could just have like like a weird thing that they're doing, but it might not consume their entire being, where like how much you eat, like how much you chew, like the numbers, like you associate every number with everything. Like every single number has something that it's associated with. So you can't, it's a full-time job.
It
in your
sounds like
head.
it. I'm getting tired thinking. I'm trying to put myself in your mind during this time. It's like, shit. And then now we're going to throw on top of it a little bit of body image and a little bit of fitness, whatever that issue is.
Yeah.
Like, how did you have the time to do to worry about all this?
I didn't do well in school. In high school, it was crazy because I barely passed high school, and I got into college because it was a music college, and they accepted me on like music. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, so they accepted me for like the music aspect, and I was able then to transfer to like actually a really good university because I was to UMass Amherst, and I had like told them all of the stuff that had happened, and I was in that I went to like rehab for like a less of a better word, but and they said, and they let me in, and I like, couldn't believe it, but I think that they just were like, oh, okay, she was a cool story. But I went from, I want to say it was like it was a really low GPA, and I got like, and I went up to like a 3.8 I graduated with honors, and I graduated a year early after like my brain was kind of settled. So it was like that much of a difference of how much my academics was like impaired because of my learning. Well, I had ADHD too. And but yeah, it was mostly because of my OCD, like how badly my academics were affected because of it, and that nobody knew.
And now when you're going through this, is it, even when you look back at this and you kind of see the story that you've went through, how much of controlling the thoughts came into it? How much of the control aspect of your life did you guys talk about that in therapy, controlling your thoughts? Or did they try to give you like some meditation practices or mindfulness, like let stuff go? Like, do you still see things the same, and you just kind of, it's just calmer, or those thoughts just kind of removed?
Yeah. So how I originally tried to like control the thoughts was via fitness and food, because those were the one things I can control, because OCD is all about control, and it's like it's literally the basis of the disorder. It's like, how can I control this from not happening, or preventing this from happening? So it's like you do everything that actually won't prevent it from happening, but it will soothe your head. So in OCD therapy, basically what you do is you freak yourself out 10 times more and realize that it's actually not going to happen. So it's like, it's called exposure therapy. So if somebody's scared of heights, like crazy scared of heights, and going on a ladder will like cause them to break down. Like you will be going up and down the ladder all day until you're like crying. And then you realize that you're okay after like the 7th time or the 7th day that you're doing it. So I had people because I was in the hospital for about a month, that kind of OCD, I'm just going to call it like an OCD rehab place. But I was in there for about a month, and there was people that like wouldn't shower. Like they told them that they weren't allowed to shower for a week. And obviously that's not like something that you would do in real life. But if you can do it for a week here, you know that if you can't shower 3 times a day that day, that you didn't shower for a week before. So your brain, you're creating those new pathways that to reassure. I don't know how a better example is like, so you've reassured yourself by doing those compulsions and nothing's happened, that's how, like, that's what you're supposed to do to make sure that doesn't happen. It's like every time I tap my door 3 times, the world didn't explode. Therefore, that caused the world not to explode, or, whatever. But so if you feel like you don't tap it, you're like, what if this is the time that happens? And I could have prevented it by tapping the door 3 times,
It's like almost like a cause and effect, but like you're actually convinced that if I don't do X, Y will happen for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Like for health OCD, I had bad health OCD. Like I thought that I would get like cancer if I didn't do this, or my mom would die if I didn't do this, or like my sister would get some sort of disease if I didn't do this, So it was all, it's weird because you're trying to be selfless, but you're also being very selfish. So, because you're just trying to prevent all of these things from, like, to protect yourself and everybody around you, but you're not. Like it's completely myopic. Selfish isn't a good word. It's a myopic disorder. where you're just constantly thinking about what can I do to like the world to work the way I need it to work, to not be panicked.
No, I'm with you. I actually I suffered from debilitating stage fright like my entire life until I was 30. That was like 3 years ago. It's just so funny. That was like the biggest fear. I lost like I always wanted to do stuff on Broadway, talking about plays. I would always want to do that. I was just terrified. And I put myself through exposure therapy in a way. Because I believe, you could tell me if I'm wrong, there's exposure therapy where you could kind of step your foot in the water and slowly push yourself. I said, I'm jumping in. I don't care. I did. So now I've been doing stand-up comedy for 2 years. It's gone. It's just so funny. You look at that and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? But it's like how you're saying, I see, not that I went through anything close to what your mind was going through, but you just see there's just like a disconnect in your mind. Like there's just a little disconnect. And when you make the new pathway, everything just like expands. Because I think some people listen to this going, how did you go from that person to this person? And I think you'd be surprised when you start getting not even control. Because for me, we talk a lot about meditation practice and letting go of your thoughts on this. And I think walking through the suffering is almost the best way to get yourself to the other side. Do you agree with that? Or are you like, Scott, I cannot, I don't know what the fuck. That's crazy. You know, in your situation.
No, I completely agree. Like what you did is it is exposure therapy. You know, it's like, but I have found almost always the anticipatory anxiety is worse than the actual event that is taking place or that will take place or that you think is going to happen. Because if something did happen, it's in my experience, it's almost always been fine. But there is like those 2 or 3 times that you think that you're like psychic because something did happen, but you completely negate the 70,000 other times you did that compulsion and nothing happened or something, you know? So it's always the ones that you remember that's why it didn't happen when I didn't do it. Therefore, I knew I was a psychic. I knew that this was.
Yeah. You're kind of making your reality a reality by kind of forcing it or whatever the situation is. You know, we all have these blind spots that we see now. Now with the binge eating, did that dissipate as you got a hand on the OCD, or were these 2 separate things that you're dealing with? Did they all fall under that control OCD issue?
Yeah. So my binge eating disorder, my restricting the food was all OCD. My binge eating disorder was stayed with me long past OCD. So, or no, I still have OCD, but like long past, like when I got a genuinely great hold on my OCD, I went completely off the handle with like binging. And like, I had like a little bit of a drinking issue for like a good 6 months. I was like genuinely, I was blacking out and I was like putting myself in seriously dangerous situations. And like my roommate was like, I had to have a sit down conversation with me and was like, listen, like, you're not okay. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And so it carried on not just with food, but with drinking. And then I just was, and it wasn't as bad as the OCD, so I didn't think it was a problem. So I just kept on going. And then the drinking, something happened. I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm not touching alcohol ever again. Turns out I'm allergic to alcohol, but I didn't know that at the time.
Just power through. So, she just powered through.
Just getting through it. But then the binging just kept on happening. And then I think actually in Ireland, when I was studying abroad here a few years ago, was like 2 weeks before I went home for my semester abroad, was the last time that I like made myself like throw up from binging. And I just like, I had started getting these things on my face, like I had popped blood vessels all over. And like, I had just like, I was so good at lying, like at that point where I was like, yeah, no, it's fine. And that's kind of what made me like stop throwing up. And then I realized that, okay, I didn't have like a way out of binging. So I have to figure out something else. So I just started reading everything. And then I came across that book and it clicked something to help me start putting the pieces together of what I needed. It was like the start of what I did, of like the continuation of like being fully healed and like being able to like live a balanced life and eat like one piece of chocolate and not have like a surge of panic of being like, so
yep. I'm with you.
Did I answer the question or did I go way off?
I think you did. I don't know. Now, just so you know, dude, I feel like you were a little addicted to this or a little, and then you have the OCD. I've been addicted. Everybody listens to this. I've been addicted to everything at a high level, and you name it: gambling, cocaine, alcohol, and like through my 20s, it was like passing the baton from like, oh, let's just stop drinking. I went through that whole thing. My mother had to sit me down and say, Scott, and I'm a terrible drunk. I'm like you, we black out. Nobody knows, but I'm just not a nice person. Then I go from there. Then you go to gambling. Then you move this, and it's like, what? Did you see that you were kind of passing this addiction piece from one thing to another? And how did you get the tools to stop that piece? Because now for me, honestly, I'm pretty good at everything, but this binge eating thing, it just annoys me because I'm pretty good during the week. And then Sunday nights come and you do the whole thing, that conversation with your mind of like, well, this is it. This is the last time. It's just, and then you think, well, I got to eat as much as I could because it's the last time. And then you just repeat it all over again. It's like, what kind of a sick game is my mind playing with me?
Okay, that's actually, see, exactly what you said is like what I used to do. The thing that's the biggest issue is like I was pretty good during the week, because that's then saying that like that's what's leading to like it's the last time, is because I was so good during this week. So I'm just gonna have it all, so then I can be perfect for the next week. And that's never the case. So in my first like few months of like being like binge free, I would have cake for lunch. Like, and I know that sounds like super silly, but I would have my breakfast, which would be like a bagel and egg or something. And then I would have cake with a side of vegetables, just so I knew, because I knew that I couldn't eat cake at night, because I would just end like mindlessly either snack or I would stay up all night. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So I was like, okay, so the best option for me is to have the cake at lunch. So I would always have cake at lunch and a side of vegetables. And then when nighttime came around, if I wanted another piece of cake, like with my friend Colleen, because this was during like when I was in Scotland, me and my friend Colleen, we would go get like cake and we would like split it, and then like have my nutritious dinner as well. So I'd always have that with my actual full like carbs, fats, proteins for dinner and vegetables. I was so strict about like, I have to incorporate everything, but I also get to have this too. So, and then it slowly started weaning off, where it's like, I didn't like need the cake as much. And then I was like, okay, so then I'll do this. And I didn't force myself to eat when I wasn't hungry. If I ate the cake and the vegetables and I wasn't hungry, I didn't have to eat another lunch, if that makes sense. I just made sure I had like a good dinner. And then if I wanted dessert after, I was more than welcome to have it. But to not, it then became less of like a novelty and not less of a, oh my God, this cake, like, oh my God, I get to have cake now, or I get to have this, or I get to have cupcakes, or I get to have like jellies. So there was a good few months where I was eating so much less, but I was eating more of the foods that I loved. But I actually ended up losing the excess weight because of that, that I had. And I took like weight loss all off the table completely. I was just like, if I gain weight, that's fine. This is just an experiment for me. And it was the best experiment I ever did. And now I eat like a complete, like 70 to 80, 20, 30, like 70, 80% of the foods I eat are like proteins, fats, carbs, like all that good stuff. And then like whatever I want for the 20, 30%.
And are you doing
kind
that?
of my rule of thumb.
Are you like your 30%? Are you even looking at that like a cheat thing, or is that you try to stay away from even identifying with that whole thing? Like you just really let yourself do it 20, 30%? You just try to keep a baseline of like, this is what it looks like for the week.
Yeah, I have absolutely like cheating is not like, there is not a food that is quote unquote good or bad for me. It is a food that's going to make me feel good and energized versus a food that's not. Like I had cake this morning after my run, like that. I literally, like, it was Easter. I went for like my 7K run this morning. And then for breakfast, I literally had a piece of cake and I was like, oh, okay, like that. And it just was like, that was my breakfast today. And then I obviously had like a great lunch and everything. I had like bagel, like eggs, and like that side of vegetables, like all of that good stuff for lunch, and like a protein shake. But my breakfast this morning was cake because that's just what I wanted and what I was craving. So I wasn't not going to have it just because it's not good for me, because technically it has carbs, it has fats, it doesn't have a lot of protein, but it had those two food groups. I had done my run, so I don't really have to worry about how I'm going to feel working out after. and I needed like sugars and carbs to refill me after my run. So I was like, I'm going to do that and then continue on my day and see what I'm in the mood for next. I don't know if that's
no. And that, because, and that's not going to bother you today. Now, eating the cake in the morning, that's not, you're not going to think about it. It's just a little treat. It's the way it is. It's the day after Easter. It's fine.
Yeah. I actually didn't think about the cake until right now. Like it
See?
wasn't a guilt thing at all. Like it's like I have absolutely zero guilt for eating sugar because technically, if we want to get technical, like you could have a piece of cake and then you have the same amount looks wise of like almond butter, and almond butter is healthy, but almond butter would be more calories than that piece of cake. And so if you choose to eat the almond butter over the cake, you're actually negating, if your goal is weight loss, which mine always was, you're negating that. So if I ever feel anxious though, I do usually know that it's because I'm eating too much sugar. And that's when I cut down the sugar. It's not because I'm like trying to be good. It's because I'm just trying to get less anxious. I'm like, okay, so I need to just replace it with banana ice cream, or like replace it with like healthy stuff, you know, that's also sweet. Cause I have a sweet tooth. Like I'm big on the sweet tooth. So yeah, that's kind of how I completely got rid of like my fear foods, but is by eating them so that they're not so scary. So I brought exposure therapy into my
Yeah. So you're kind of living the exposure therapy. Cause I had this, they have Papa John's in
not here, but I know what that is. Yeah.
Okay. So Papa John's has this dessert. It's a chocolate chip pie. It's chocolate chip, except it's a pie. And I had that last night because I was like, it's Easter. I deserve it. And I'm still upset about it. I'm just still in my heart. I'm just sitting here like, oh, you really shouldn't have that. You know, and it's like, I know that's wrong. And it sounds like we like, even though you were always eating the right way, now you're eating a little better. Obviously, the relationship you've had with food has entirely changed. Like, it doesn't even sound like anything. You're not even really obsessed with anything.
But like that's the thing, the best thing that you can do now, like for the next, like, but it doesn't have to be like, it's not a forever thing. The best thing that you can do for yourself now is order it again like tomorrow, or like, you know, and have it like twice a week for the next 2 months, and it won't be a novelty anymore, and you won't feel guilty about it, because every time you do it, you'll just realize. And then maybe you'll want to stop because you're like, I just kind of feel gross. I'm like not in the mood for it. Like it's, and you're like, whoa, I'm like, who am I?
That's so true. I only have that once every 6 months. And it was like the second April hit, I was like, ooh, I can have my Papa John's thing. Oh, that's so funny. Now,
Yeah.
as far as your routine goes, your fitness, how did that change? Or you could even tell me what you were doing back then, but what does it look like today? And how is the relationship with fitness and all that changed? Because I know you sounded similar to me, where like, if I don't work out, if I'm not in the gym 3 hours a day, I'm behind and I need to hit this and all that tiring shit.
Yeah. So my main thing was like cardio, and it was like intense cardio, like as most binge eaters, like that's their choice is the heavy cardio. So I still love cardio. I'm super into cardio, but cardio also makes you hungrier, I found. So when I was like trying to stop binge eating, I actually completely stopped doing like intense cardio and went completely into weights and walking. So I would walk like 10 to 20,000 steps, like just depending on a day. And I would do weights like 3 to 4 times a week. And that is actually, I've carried that into today, because I love walking like so much. And it's just something that some people might not like with. Maybe it's like biking, or maybe it's like going on the elliptical, but like walking for me is like, that is my low impact. Like I'm like active. I'm like burning the calories. I'm like moving my body, like getting mobile and everything. And then I have my 3-4 times a week where I'm like just pushing myself hard for like 30-45 minutes. And it's just like completely changed my life from working out and doing like intervals for 3-4 hours of the day on the treadmill. You know, I had like shin splints. I was always sick all the time because I wasn't like feeding myself properly after the workout. But when I go for a run, like if I go for like a 10K run, and I'm just, because I love running, I notice the entire day I am like consistently eating, like constantly. So when I put those two together, I realized it was kind of triggering my like binge eating stuff. And I was like, and I started getting scared because I was eating so much, because the more I work out with like the 3+ hours, I'm actually eating way more, which is fair because I mean, I obviously like need to replenish my body. But then on the days that I'm not, I feel 10 times more guilty. I don't know if this is like making sense, but basically like I started moving less. I started taking rest days, and I started doing like the same amount of cardio, but it was low impact. So I was walking, and it made my hunger less like, is it what like intense.
No,
So
no,
I was able to control it better.
I'm with you. And I recently started today. I usually would start my leg days on Mondays with some sort of like Stairmaster or something. I switched it over to 6 miles of walking by the water, more because I just enjoy, like how you were saying, nature. I'm a nature guy. There's
Yeah.
I have water by me. I was like, I just feel better when I do it. Now, because of the pie yesterday, we did do 13 miles today, which is stupid. I'm sure fucking you've done that too. You think I'm gonna burn off all these calories, but I just see myself just be so much happier when I'm by the water or and I'm sure you're running in nature. Like that is what works for people like us. And I think that's the good part of what we try to talk about on this podcast. Like you have to kind of try everything and see what works. And it sounds like, even though I'd say you're a little unorthodox in your methods, it does work for you. And you've done years of trial and error that gets you. And as long as you're happy, that's really all that matters. Right. So.
Right. No, exactly. And like, and it's the way that I've kind of like healed myself. It's not something like I super promote on my page, because a lot of people would be like, you're not supposed to do that. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, this is personally what worked for me. Like I did do like a binge eating disorder guide and stuff, but like I've like disclaimed, I'm like, this is completely like unorthodox. I'm like, this is completely work for me. Like all of this stuff. And it might not work for you. It might not be like anything that you find helpful. But for me, it was the exposure therapy of eating the stuff, not taking a rest day. Like rest day, I was like, oh my God, I cannot take a rest day. Like, are you kidding? Like I would not be able to do that. But yeah, I actually completely fell off the wagon fell off the wagon, quote unquote. But like I didn't work out much at all. Like once I was on the medication, because my medication, like my attention span was gone, my binge eating was crazy. That's why I gained like the 30 plus pounds. But once it was actually really good that happened, because I was like, okay, I didn't like, I'm okay, that I took all of like the 2 months, like I barely worked out, like I'm fine, like I'm actually didn't get as much sick, and yeah, I'm like up a crazy amount of weight, but but I'm like, I don't have shin splints anymore. Like my body seems like it's a lot more healed. And then it kind of got me to like go on like a more healthy route. And like, I couldn't even fathom wanting to do like intense cardio. And I was like, okay, like I don't have that habit anymore. I don't want to do that in any way, shape, or form. What can I do to make my body feel good that will also make me feel good? So that's kind of exactly where I went. And then once I found weight training, I was like, yeah, like, this is for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's and at least I'm sure it's similar in all Western cultures. Like we're so fixated on this, like pushing and go and go. But like I found, because I'm a doer like you, and we can get crazy with stuff. It's equally important to kind of slow down and have that break or whatever that may be, to have, because not only for your body, because we know that recovery is needed, but to like say to yourself, like I don't have to keep, like I was the same way you were. Like I was like, I have to work out 6 times a week, or I'm gonna become the fat kid, because I'm going off that image of the bigger kid. So even stopping for like however long you want, it does show you like, I'm not going to change or whatever. It's you're not, the world's not going to fall apart after a month of not working out.
Right. No, that's the thing too. And then, but something that you also have to do like with that is like, I've kind of completely gotten rid of like my fear of like gaining weight, because I took so many measures into genuinely like really liking my body and how it's made, and that it will not look like somebody else's body. Like I want to make my body the best that my personal body type can be. Like I won't be following a girl like on Instagram or whatever that I'm like, I wish I had that body, or I wish I looked like that. Like that doesn't go in my head anymore, because I'm like, that's just not my body. I can only analyze my body, which I don't do anymore also either, but I can only improve like what I'm working with right now. So with how I kind of did that was, instead of having like a body focus goal, I did like a strength focus goal, or like I ran a marathon, I trained for that. Like it was more that kind of stuff that like drove me to work out, instead of because you do have to find another why once it's not your body anymore. Once you're not like, okay, I have to, like, I can't gain weight. It's like, okay, well, if I take weight out of the equation, why am I doing this? And it's usually like, I'm like, why am I doing this? like I don't want to do this. But and when you figure out, you're like, okay, I want to do a push-up. Okay, I want to do the splits. I want to do a handstand. I want to like be able to run a mile. Like those were the stuff that started like drive me to the gym, that created the habit. And then I did it because I wanted to like get the benefits of it. Because you don't typically are like, oh, I want to work out because I want to get those endorphins. It's like yes, you get those, but it's not like ingrained in you until like a while, you know? So yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. What is one thing that you would tell the young listeners here that could be struggling with something of addiction or OCD, anything in the mental health realm? What is the one thing that you would tell your younger self that would dramatically, make your mental health a little bit better during those times?
It would have been to open up so much sooner, like so much sooner. I did not speak of it until I was 19, and obviously, and that didn't just affect me, it affected my parents, it affected my sister. I could have gotten help so much sooner if I was willing to talk about it. Like I had gone to therapy before, like my parents had sent me because I had been like obviously erratic, like I was just like crazy, like just off the wall, like didn't know what was wrong with me. But I would completely lie in the therapy sessions, and they just thought, they're like nothing's wrong with you. I don't like, why are you even here? You're crying, but I don't know why, So it would be to be honest about what was happening. And that so many people, like I was terrified to do the account and like actually open up about like my eating stuff and my OCD stuff. And once I did, almost like I've had so many friends like come to me for advice and they're the friends that I thought were like perfect. And I was like, no way. I was like, you too? I was like,
Isn't it funny?
Like, not great. But yeah.
Your mind just plays those tricks on you, right? That you think everybody's going to shun you and do all this stuff. And all of a sudden, everybody's in the same boat. We're all a lot similar than what you think, right?
I was terrified. I thought that I wasn't going to get a boyfriend. Like I thought that nobody would like me like this. I thought that like my friends were going to think differently of me, besides like my core friends that like I've had since I was like 5. But like I genuinely thought that I was like going to be damaged from this point on for anybody who knew me. And I was like, and obviously now I don't even really think that way anymore.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Dierdre, thank you so much for joining us and just being so open about everything. I think this is really going to help a lot of our listeners. It's going to help me too, because I need to take some of these tips. So.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, it was so nice talking to you.
It was a pleasure. It was good. Come back on. We'll talk more when you have a new whatever. I'm always here. This is very cool. YouTube listeners listening, the subscribe button should be right there. Subscribe, leave comments. If you want to reach out to Dierdre, you find her info and her Instagram below. If you're listening just on audio, just tell one of your friends about this. Just pass it off to them. That's really it. As always, stay safe, stay positive, stay blessed. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.